Hi, everyone. Good morning again. As I said before, my name is Effe. I'm the chairman of the advisory board at the E-commerce Berlin Expo. I've been around for the last couple of years, getting to know most of you that are listening to this presentation, but we have also quite a few new faces. So I'm very curious to get to know you, and I'm curious to find out at the end of the 2-day period what you've learned out of the expo. So we have, as I said, 300 exhibitors in these premises. This is one of the 3 halls that you will see. We have 5 stages. This is one of them, and we have 11 to 12,000 visitors. We will find out exactly how many visitors we have throughout the days. So I want to start my presentation just talking about a story, the story of a swan. So while preparing these slides, my wife was asking me, like, why are you showing birds to everyone? So are they gonna think you're on LSD or something? I wasn't on LSD, but I think this is a good metaphor I'm gonna talk about. So in the past, the European, in Europe, for a long time, people thought swans were white. Actually, that black swans didn't exist. Up until 1697, when Dutch explorers found out in Australia that they, for the first time, saw a black swan. It struck them because up until that moment, until this discovery, everyone was even learning at school. Everyone was taught black swans didn't exist. So this shocked everyone. This was a moment where people started to question what they thought to be true was no longer true. There are a lot of things that we believe we know, but in fact, we don't know what we don't know. In the tech industry, there have been a lot of black swan moments. This ranges from products and companies being disrupted and completely wiped out of the surface of the industry. So one example, around early 2010s, most of us had a BlackBerry phone with a keyboard on it. I myself had one, and we loved it, right? So the push notifications for the first time were a thing where we thought, wow, this is really game-changing. And then in 2007, there was a new disruption in the market from an innovative company called Apple that introduced the touch phone device, iPhone, for the first time. The iPhone disrupted the industry because even the end consumer themselves, they didn't know that they would learn to love the touch phones. So this was the BlackBerry CEO at that time, the founder and the CEO, is a super smart guy and has a very, very high IQ. And even he believed that these keyboards are absolutely necessary. Along with the keyboard, there were other innovations that Apple introduced, which kind of led to the shift from BlackBerry being the market leader to being completely wiped out of the surface. How many of you have a BlackBerry today? No one. When I was at university, almost like end of university, when I started my first job, everyone had a BlackBerry. So please, for the rest of this presentation, think about it. Why do we have these types of situations? In psychology, there's a cognitive bias called end of history illusion. This is also, in the tech industry, the reason why we ignore disruption until it's very late. What does it mean? What happened to BlackBerry was the assumption that people need keyboard devices and they would be happy with the primary focus on their emails. But then, on a personal level, what makes us think like, hey, when we look to the past, we think, oh, I've grown so much, I've learned so much. But end of history illusion says we sometimes feel this present moment is the time where we feel we're done now, we're finished. As a matter of fact, we're never finished. So throughout this presentation, I thought I start with showing you stuff that we do know. And then I started to think, why am I actually the one to present to you these insights? Because right now in front of me, there are dozens, if not hundreds of experts that are way better at me at their job, dealing with the operational challenges of e-commerce on a day-to-day basis. I see one of you right in front of me. Why am I the one who gets to present to you these learnings today? For the last 2 years, I've spent so much time interviewing and talking to managing directors, founders, and thought leaders from all these companies. And also, you will see on the bottom some companies like ECDB and PinOps Research that fed me lots of consumer data and insights from e-commerce. So I was kind of curious and put all of this information in front of me and tried to make you, build you a picture, offer you a picture of e-commerce as we speak today. How does global e-commerce look like today? For the first time in 2025, we've come to a point that gross merchandise value generated globally in only e-commerce sales, not physical retail, has reached $5.1 trillion US. So this is an unprecedented level that we've reached. So it's a growing industry with a compound annual growth rate of 14%. So this is much higher than overall growth of retail. So it's a growing industry. And the expected growth of 2025 is 9.7. But the last couple of years for many countries has been also marked by high inflation. So when looking at growth, we have to take it with a grain of salt. We have to take it into consideration how much of it is actually inflation. That's why out of these 9.7, I think it's 5.1% is real growth. Okay, so this means for the first time since 2022, where we had negative growth rates around minus 6% and 2%, we are finally seeing growth rates 2024, 1.5, and now in 2025, we're reaching 5.1. And this growth is primarily driven by marketplaces. We will get to that. And when you look at the marketplaces globally, by the way, I forgot to mention, all of these slides you will be able to download at the end of my presentation. So in case you forget to take a photo, you will have all of it later. 6 of the largest marketplaces are Chinese these days. So this looked different when we looked at it. Remember the BlackBerry situation? When we looked at this chart, looked very different 15 years ago, 10 years ago. When you look at these companies, you will probably not recognize the brands that you interact with on a day-to-day basis. Pinduoduo, PDD Group, is the mother company behind Temu, for example. Douyin is the Chinese TikTok, and Douyin and TikTok belong to the same company called ByteDance. And then JD.com is the #1 retailer in China, highest GMV. And Taobao, Tmall, they both belong to the Alibaba group. They're also here at the expo. Today, you will be able to meet almost all of these players. Of course, not to mention, I don't need to focus on Amazon because it's the market leader going forward. So when you look at global revenue, it's interesting because Europe and America, they really differ from the rest of the world. Why? Because marketplaces dominate, when you look at Asia, marketplaces dominate almost 98% of all e-commerce revenues. And when you look at South America and Central America, a similar picture. When you look at Europe, shops are still generating more revenue than marketplaces. Then, in one of the podcast episodes I had recently, my interview guest told me, Effe, German e-commerce is stuck. And then she said it in a very dramatic way, so I started thinking about it. I started thinking whether or not it is true. So we've seen the negative growth inflation, and all these things. As a matter of fact, we have, in comparison to the global growth of annual compound growth rate of 14% for the same range, we have 7% growth in Germany. It's a laggard, it's a slower growth that we see. And in terms of inflation, we've also had some challenges. So, but also there, we're moving towards a normalization of growth, where in German, we have a saying, mühsam ernährt sich das Eichhörnchen. It's funny, I think. I tried to translate it, so you'll see the squirrel feeds itself difficultly. I don't know, it's probably not the best translation, but you get the idea. We're getting there, but slowly. So the real growth is around 2.6%. And here you have the information on the chart. So I thought it is clear to most of us which categories we have in e-commerce and how big they are in terms of online penetration. But I thought maybe it's not clear to everyone. So in this slide, you see the main categories. There are 7 main categories in e-commerce. You see which ones have the biggest online penetration and which one has to a lesser extent online penetration, and which category is growing slower and which category is growing faster. So electronics has as the biggest online penetration segment. It has 4.8% growth, but also has 40% online rate, right? So it's the biggest. And then you have fashion, has a lot of difficulties. You know, there's lots of competition, 6.1% growth. You have care, furniture, hobby and leisure that are growing. But interesting is do-it-yourself is growing at a very slow pace in comparison to the other segments. It has an online share of 10%. And you have grocery, which is growing at a massive scale at 14%, with an online share of only 3%. So this means 97% of food and grocery sales are actually being done through offline ways, like supermarkets or you name it. So it doesn't mean that there aren't many opportunities. On the contrary, there are lots of opportunities. So let's be, for the next 2 days, let's be quite curious about the next BlackBerry moment. Where is it going to come from? So let's ask ourselves what the next disruption will be. So today I brought with me, and since these are black swans, I cannot know whether or not they're black swans. But all I can do is to make you curious so you can go out there and find out. So 3 things I want to give you today: emerging business models, AI and hyper-personalization, and live and social commerce. But before I do so, the other day I was sitting on the train and I was looking around me, and I just had this realization that everyone on this train, they were all sucked into their phones. I have 2 kids, and I often look at other parents, they're always looking at their phones and not enjoying the moment. And it made me think, why are we doing that? And there's a science behind it, that we love the phones and we love this movement of scrolling because it gives us a very natural hormone that we need so direly, which is dopamine. Dopamine is one of the reasons that people even die from depression. Without dopamine, there has been tests done on mice. The lack of dopamine can lead to instant death if you really are deprived. So we are constantly searching through these devices, through these apps, for that source of dopamine. And while we are doing that, do we even realize how we used to interact with online shops and e-commerce for the last 25 years? We have been searching. We kind of knew for many years, we kind of knew what we wanted to buy online. So we got our inspiration, and we decided to shop online in the awareness phase. We got the inspiration, and then we got kind of educated about the products, and we decided to buy online. But this has been changing. As a matter of fact, the first short-form content came from Asia, from China in 2011. Kuwait Shop. And they're still among the 6 Chinese leader marketplaces today. And you've seen the chart. The short-form content platforms are monetizing their users to a large extent. So we're being monetized. And as an American, Eric Schmidt, former CEO of Google, said a very smart thing. And he said it a couple of years ago. I want to ask you when he said it, but before that, I want to read it out loud. As an American, I have carried prejudices about China. Those prejudices need to be thrown out. We need to get our act together and compete. So most of us have been hearing on the news that these Chinese players, yeah, they're kind of disrupting, but they're doing sketchy things. There are a lot of misconceptions right now in the industry. Maybe there are a lot of truths, but I would like to encourage you to keep an open mind to understand how they approach the market. Not just judge, but to rethink how they try to readdress the consumer needs. Eric Schmidt said that 5 years ago in 2020. And today, Shein is the #1 retailer, fashion retailer in the world, and #9 in Germany. And most of you have seen this probably on the slide. Shein sells 0 products in China. And as a matter of fact, they've even moved their headquarters to Singapore, not to be labeled as a Chinese company. And you see JD.com is also a Chinese player, Walmart, Nike, Zalando. They're exponentially growing throughout the years. Why are they doing that? Because they have a complete different business model. They have an on-demand, factory-to-customer business demand based on app-centric and customer-centric business model. So we have to evaluate that, and they have lots of gamification, right? If you're curious about Shein, there will be a slot tomorrow at 1:15 where I get to ask also, where Peter, head of strategy at Shein, does a presentation. He accepted my invitation to come from the US, and I get to ask him some critical questions. So join me while I do that tomorrow. We also have Temu as an exhibitor this year. I think Temu is very much an interesting example of how gamification can disrupt the industry. So they have 3 things, in my opinion, that set them apart from utilizing AI and cutting-edge technology, of course. Temu has low prices. Gamification tries to lure you with the spinning wheel. You probably have shopped on Temu. Actually, I'm curious, how many of you have bought something from Temu already? How many of you have taken a look at the Temu app, at least? It's interesting. Last year, I had a similar question. It was less. Inevitably, they're also burning a lot of marketing dollars, right? So they're trying to get the customers. And these days, one truth that we have always believed in seems to be completely different, because we have always believed, all these years, we have recommended brands, hey, make sure you fulfill your shipment timeline. So if you promise the customer 2 days, then make sure that the faster, the better, the more convenient, the better. But that seems to be changing. 5 days delivery time seems to be okay for quite a lot of customers these days, because they're price sensitive. Going back, in between the year 2022 and 2023, Temu has grown 4,563% market share in Germany. And these are the disruptive Chinese retailers growing their market share. Now, we've seen the Temu example, but look at AliExpress, around 54%, Shein, 40%, and Trendyol, 15%. So AliExpress generating 1,345,000,000 in Germany. And when you look at the GMV that they generate in the entire European Union, they actually only generate 7% in Germany. And for example, 20% in Turkey with Trendyol, which has been acquired by Alibaba and AliExpress. So that you have Germany, Italy, Spain, France, and Turkey. So as you see, the more price-sensitive markets have a bigger market penetration by these guys. So most of us have been anxiously waiting for TikTok Shop to launch in Germany. So this was actually initially scheduled for last year. Why didn't it happen? Because ByteDance, the company, decided to focus the energy on improving the US business and increasing the KPIs there. So TikTok Shop has been launched in Southeast Asia and the US and UK for quite some time now. And it's taken a while to come to Germany. But since there's lots of regulatory concerns whether or not TikTok will be banned in the US, we are now seeing a shift that they're expediting efforts to launch in Germany. As a matter of fact, just recently they've launched in Spain, and it's running very well. And in the UK, they have merchants that sell multiple millions, that generate multiple million euros within just a live feed right now as we speak. So it's pretty much a wide range of things that you can do within the app. You can have live feeds. You can place your products in catalogs. So this is supposed to come to Germany as early as March. Right now, there are rumors that this is being tested among select big brands, and we will see how that goes. Yeah, so I think this is super interesting because at the end, this is also short form content that feeds on that dopamine that I talked about. So, as I said before, the country breakdown, this doesn't include Spain and Ireland that have recently launched. If you're curious about which kind of products sell well on TikTok Shop, I will tell you. Care products, fashion, grocery, furniture and homeware, and electronics. So this is the breakdown of the product per GMV generated, and the country breakdown you see on this chart. Towards the end of this presentation, I want to leave you with a couple of, I don't want to leave you hanging, right? So I want to give you some recommendations as to how to compete in this changing landscape. So I sat down together with my friend Johannes Altmann, who's running the Pinops research company, and we've taken a look at the consumer research and what the consumers are saying in Germany about their feeling, how they purchase. So one thing that came to our attention is, right now we're seeing a shift in impulsive buying. The consumer hates the stress that that online shopping brings, that they constantly have to be on the lookout for impulsive tricks. So they don't want brands to trick them. Actually, as a matter of fact, trust for brands is eroding right now. The consumer doesn't trust brands anymore. So they have grown to be extremely price sensitive because of inflation, because of other factors like sustainability. They've grown out of just buying for no reason at higher prices. So they're more price sensitive than ever. Then, for brands especially, there's no other way to compete rather than differentiating. So consumers are willing to pay more for quality products and sustainable products. Around 39% of German customers today look at quality, and they are willing to pay more. Around 9% are willing to pay way more for sustainable products, given that the brand communicates that transparency and trust. And it's quite interesting is a study from eBay shows with ECC Köln shows that consumers are 64% of consumers are saying that they're much more likely to buy secondhand, and 69% of these people are buying these products not just because they're sustainable, because they are much cheaper. So my last recommendation is don't sell products. Actually, one of my podcast guests said this, and I was like thinking about that. That's actually a good point. Because most companies that compare features of their products and like just focus on the very minute details of what their product can offer are not succeeding anymore. The consumer wants more emotions, more personalized experiences. One good example is Book Talk. How many of you follow Book Talk or heard about it? Some bookworms back there. Very nice. So where influencers sit in front of a camera and talk about the books that they've recently read, and they have an affiliate link on their profile leading them to a marketplace or their own website where they can buy the books. But more importantly, we talked about emotions and communities, right? So right now, another recommendation is to build communities and lead your consumer, lead the customers to trust you. There are great examples throughout the Expo. I brought 3 of them with me. Quite interesting. Miss Pompadour, I guess many of you heard of them in the DIY branch, which I told you is not growing so fast, but these guys are super successful. Why? Because they have a vibrant community with more than almost 500,000 followers everywhere. These people are sharing how they painted their bathroom, and they're super happy about it, and they want to tell everyone. And they want to look at other examples that they have events where they can get inspiration and help from each other. And then Superstreusel, they started so small, and we've seen the growth journey with them. It's fantastic to see them being so successful in selling Zuckerstreusel. I don't even know what they're called in English. I don't use these things, but I guess this is something you would put on your pop tarts or something. Daniela, where are you? Anyway, so Zoo Plus is also super interesting that they have super low return rates because they have such a loyal customer base. Returns are a big problem in e-commerce. They're so successful that they've even recently launched their marketplace, and they have a huge community of pet owners that are super emotional about this. And then Book Talk, we talked about it. Thalia has a dedicated landing page for Book Talk content, where you can find out which content you like and just buy it immediately from Thalia. And then hyper-personalization, as I mentioned, is a big topic. A lot of us have been talking about ChatGPT, Gen AI, and how this is being embedded in chatbots or something. But right now, many e-commerce brands are actually talking about operational AI and how they can change the entire journey in real time to give you a website and a complete personalized experience that you would have elsewhere. If you're scrolling down on TikTok, each content piece is personalized for your needs and for your likes. This is a similar approach, just on the other side, with your online shop. So where you can show them the colors they want. If they come from social media, they would see a different experience. If they would come from your email marketing campaign, it could be a different experience for them. So throughout today, you will learn all about these trends that I talked about. Yeah, so I want to leave you today with a couple of topics that I mentioned. We talked about disruptive business models. We talked about AI and hyper-personalization. We talked about the live shopping and live social shopping and gamification and immersive experiences. Along with that, we've talked about building communities, leadership, and inspiration. And we have two complete new things that are happening at the Expo today and tomorrow. We have a new VIP expert lounge. I see Laura clapping back there. Laura, thank you so much. I think this is going to be quite interesting for e-commerce brands and young professionals and mid and senior professionals to find out more from the experts that made a lot of that have a success track record. So join us if you're looking for a VIP pass. I'm sure Laura still has some one-time entry tickets. You might get lucky. Also, for the first time, we have this founder and CEO of ePages, founder and CEO of Shopware, CEO of JTL on our brand new Shop Tech stage. So join these guys as they talk about the innovations on the technical side of things. So this is going to be super important. And if you want to know what my highlights are for the Expo, I posted them on my profile. So scan this barcode and you will know exactly which slots I'm recommending you to check out. And you can also connect with me on LinkedIn using this barcode. Thank you so much for your attention. And before we finish, I'd like to introduce Franziska Giffey, who's joining us. And she is the mayor of Berlin. And she will have some warm welcoming for all of you in German. Franziska, welcome.
So, guten Morgen allerseits. Ist der E-commerce schon was? Are you already on the spot? Good morning. Okay. I would like to do it in German and in English at the same time, because I see that many guests of you are not from Berlin. Who's not from Berlin? Okay. Who is not speaking German? Okay, a few. Okay, good. Ja, mein Name ist Franziska Giffey. Ich bin Bürgermeisterin und Senatorin für Wirtschaft hier in Berlin. I'm Senator for Economic Affairs in the city of Berlin. And of course, I would like to welcome all of you very warmly here to the Expo for the e-commerce. We are very proud that you are here, and not for the first time in Berlin. It's already a tradition that you are here. And it is a very important branch for all of us here in Berlin. And I brought you one figure that is really interesting to see, that when we look at 5-6 years ago, in 2019, before the corona pandemic, we had 59 billion euro of overall Umsatz, yeah, and in this year we have more than 88 billion, and that is really a huge sum. It's only Germany, and when we look at on Berlin, we see that we have a lot of startup companies who are here in the city and who are developing very well. So what I would like to emphasize is that in the city of Berlin, we are really focusing on our traditional commerce, of course, but we want to combine it. We want to make a connection between both of them. And for that reason, it's really important that you are here today. So for us, it is important to connect both worlds. Was ich wichtig finde, ist, dass wir hier in unserer Stadt natürlich auf unsere Zentren schauen. Wir haben 80 Zentren in Berlin, 80 Zentren, in denen sich natürlich der traditionelle Einzelhandel bewegt. Wir sind hier mit unseren Geschäften, mit den Kaufhäusern, mit den Orten, an denen Menschen sich begegnen, mit den Shopping Malls. Aber ich habe heute Morgen in der Berliner Zeitung gelesen, Leerstand in der Mall of Berlin. Vielleicht haben Sie es auch gesehen. Und die Frage war, was ist da los? Und was ist da los? Das ist natürlich immer auch eine Frage, die dann sofort verbunden wird. Ja, ist da Leerstand, weil der Onlinehandel boomt und die Leute nicht mehr einkaufen gehen. Und wir müssen ganz klar sagen, natürlich boomt der Onlinehandel, aber wir sehen auch, dass die Leute sehr wohl einkaufen gehen. Und der Leerstand auch oft damit verbunden ist, dass sich eben Dinge verändern, dass neue Läden reinkommen, alte noch da sind, neue Mieterinnen und Mieter kommen, umgebaut wird. Und wir haben letztes Jahr ein sehr intensives Jahr gehabt mit der Galeria Karstadt Kaufhof hier in Berlin, in ganz Deutschland. Es ging darum, haben die Warenhäuser überhaupt noch eine Zukunft? Und diese Zukunft, die ist viel diskutiert worden. Es gibt Leute, die sagen, nein, es wird alles künftig nur noch online stattfinden, nur noch im E-Commerce. Und eigentlich kann man die Warenhäuser schon abschreiben. Ich kann Ihnen sagen, ich bin nicht dieser Meinung, aber ich bin auch nicht der Meinung, dass der E-Commerce nicht weiter eine wichtige Rolle spielen wird, sondern wir brauchen beides. Wir müssen beide Modelle miteinander verbinden. Und das ist der Wunsch, den ich habe, dass wir, und ich hoffe, das können Sie heute hier auch gut diskutieren, dass wir tatsächlich in eine neue Form von Handel kommen, dass wir unsere Wirtschaft so stärken, dass Berlin eben ein Hotspot sein kann für gutes Einkaufen in der Stadt, aber eben auch für die neuesten, innovativsten Konzepte von E-Commerce. Und das ist das, worum es bei Ihnen heute geht. Wir sehen, dass wir mit diesem Boom, den wir in den letzten Jahren erleben, natürlich auch einhergehend ein anderes Einkaufsverhalten haben von Menschen. Die Leute finden es gut, wenn sie eben über die normalen Ladenöffnungszeiten hinaus einkaufen können, wenn sie ein breites Angebot haben, wenn sie einen guten Preisvergleich haben. Die Leute finden es gut, diese Möglichkeiten zu haben. Und der entscheidende Punkt ist, wie kann der traditionelle Einzelhandel sich damit tatsächlich auch verbinden. Und insofern ist mein großer Wunsch, den ich habe, und Sie werden ja hier viel über die Zukunft diskutieren, dass genau diese Verbindung unserer traditionellen Shopping Malls mit dem, was in der Digitalisierung passiert, hier auch diskutiert werden kann auf dieser Expo, dass es dafür neue Ideen und Konzepte gibt. Denn eins ist klar, unser traditioneller Einzelhandel wird nur dann eine Zukunft haben, wenn er sich auch auf den Weg macht, modern, innovativ zu sein und die Digitalisierung zu nutzen. Click-and-Collect-Modelle gibt es schon. Es gibt viele Orte, an denen in der Stadt das schon passiert. Und genau darum würde es ja bei Ihnen heute auch gehen. Wir jedenfalls als Stadt Berlin finden, dass sowohl der traditionelle Einzelhandel in den Zentren als auch der E-Commerce absolut notwendig ist für den Wirtschaftsstandort, für unsere internationale Profilierung. Und deswegen möchte ich Sie alle herzlich willkommen heißen hier bei uns in der Stadt. Ich möchte Ihnen viel Erfolg wünschen für Ihre Tagung. A lot of success, good connections, good relationships, good talks and new ideas. And I hope you enjoy the Expo E-Commerce, and I hope you will get also new ambitions and context for the economic state here in Berlin. So thank you very much and all the best. Thank you.